Hello everyone and welcome to another video in our series of Texas Instrument Calculator and how to use the BA2 Plus calculator. In this series we're going to cover a variety of topics on how to use the BA2 Plus calculator for financial or business math.
In this video of the series, we're going to look at how do we find the discounted cash flow and net present value, of course using the BA2 Plus Texas Instrument calculator. First, we're going to look at briefly what is the discounted cash flow and what's the net present value, what do they mean. As it says here, the discounted cash flow method is when we find all the expected future value of cash flows from investing in a project are discounted to determine their present value at the focal date. So you made several investments in the future, you're getting back money in the future, a year from now, 2 years, 3 years. What's the present value for all of them at the present value, either now, a year from now, last year? That's the focal date, in order to determine which investment option is better. So if we have two investments, one gives you several payments in the next 3 years, the other gives you different payments in the next 3 years. Which one is better? Based on the present value of this investment now. So business must ensure that it makes profit on its investment. This is when the cash inflows are greater than the cash outflows. This is when the net present value is positive, because the net present value, as you will see, is the inflow minus the outflow. So when businesses make decision on investment, they consider a couple of things: the discounted cash flow, as we said, the net present value. They look at the internal rate of return and the payback period. We're going to look at only these two things in this video: the discounted cash flow and the net present value. Okay, so as we said, what's the discounted cash flow? What's the net present value? The discounted cash flow is when we found, as we said, the present value of all cash flows of the investment. So we have several investments, several payoff in the next couple of years or couple of months or whatever. We're going to find the present value of each future value payment. Then we're going to add them all up, and this will be the present value of all cash flow. This should be greater than the investment cost. And remember, the investment cost also is a present value. So in other words, it's the present value of all inflow should be greater than the present value of all outflow. Okay? So let's look at example here. Investment, expect generate 10,000 1 year from now, 8,000 2 years from now, 4,000 3 years from now. If the investment makes a rate of return of 15%, what's the discounted cash flow? So we're going to find the present value of this, 3 payments, add them all up, and that will give us the discounted cash flow. If some initial investment is less than the cash flow, the present value, the discounted cash flow, then it's a good investment. If the initial investment is greater than the discounted cash flow, which is the inflow, then it's not a good investment. And this is where the net present value will be either positive or negative. Okay, so how are we going to find all of this? Well, we have a discounted cash flow worksheet on the calculator. So how do we access this discounted cash flow? We have to press the CF button to open the cash flow worksheet. Of course, we're going to clear work to make sure there's nothing in the discounted cash flow, and this is very important because let's assume in the previous example you were doing there were 5 inflow. Now in this example there are 3, so you changed the first 3 inflows but you didn't reset the other 2, then you have the wrong answer. So the first option when you press the down button, it's the CF0, which is the initial cash flow. If there is no initial cash flow, this is the initial investment, then leave it as 0. Press down, and it's going to ask you for the first cash inflow for the first year or the first period. How often you're going to get this payment. So this to make things easier. If you're receiving a 10,000, for example, every year for the next 3 years, instead of entering 3 different cash inflows, since they are the same value, you can enter 10,000 and you put the frequency here 3, which means it's for 3 years. Then the second cash inflow and the frequency, the third cash inflow and the frequency. So if you need more, you keep pressing the down arrow, enter the new cash flow and the frequency for it. You will see also that this is very important to follow the procedure. Let's say, for example, if in the second year there was no inflow. So the first year you receive 10,000 and the third year they receive 4,000. In this case, I cannot enter the first cash flow as 10,000 and the second as 4,000 because there is a gap of a year between them. There was no payment. In this case, I have to enter here 0 with frequency 1. If there was no payment for 2 years, I have to enter 0 frequency 2. So every period, in this case it's a year, you have to enter a cash flow for it. If it's the same, then you enter the frequency 3, 4, 5. If there is no payment, you have to enter it as 0. Once you enter all the cash flow, then you press the NPV button, the net present value button. And this is where it's going to ask you for the interest rate. And you press enter. Then CPT, and it will give us the answer. In this case, it's going to give us the net present value, which is the cash inflow, because we didn't enter, as we see here, we didn't enter the initial investment. If we enter the initial investment, let's say it's 15,000, the investment Sam made, then the net present value here will be 2,374, etc. Because the net present value will be the cash inflow minus the outflow. Okay, so let's grab our calculator and see how we can do this. Okay, so as you can see here, this is the CF button. So all I have to do is press it, and you see it's CF0. So I'm going to press enter, get down to CO1. It's 10,000, and I'm going to press enter. Down, frequency is 1. Enter. Down. The second one is 8,000. Enter. Frequency 1. So I'm not going to change it. Third one, 4,000. Enter. Also frequency 1. So now I entered everything. If I need more cash inflow, I can keep going with the down arrow. But once I entered everything I need, I will press the NPV value. It's going to ask me for the interest rate, which is 15. Press enter. Then down to the NPV, CPT. 17,374.86644. That's the net present value. In this case, it's also the discounted cash flow because we didn't enter the inflow. Later on, I will show you how you get the different answer. Let's look at another example here. A delivery company is evaluating a 30,000 investment to purchase vehicles. So that's the initial investment. They're going to pay 30,000. This is expected to generate a return of 8,000 1 year from now, 13 2 years from now, 16 3 years from now. The required rate of return is 8%. Calculate discounted cash flow and determine whether this is a worthwhile investment. So 30,000. If we add the money, the inflow, 8,000 plus 13 plus 16, you will see that this is more than 30,000. Does that mean it's a good investment? No, because these are future value and the other one is present value. That's why we have to find the discounted cash inflow for all of them. Okay, so basically that's what we need to find. The discounted cash flow for each one of them. We can find them using the old method. We don't have to use the discounted cash flow worksheet. It's just finding the present value for 3 different future value. So I can repeat what we did with compound interest to find those present value. But of course, the discounted cash flow is much easier to use. So this is how we enter them if we're using the old method of finding compound interest. We're finding the present value of 3 different future value. Interest rate is the same, PY and CY is the same. The difference is the future value is different. You can see between these 3. And of course, N for each one of them is also different. But we're not doing that. So this is the present value of all of them. And you can see that it's greater than 30,000, which means it's a sound investment. It's a good investment. But let's grab our calculator. So in the calculator, this is what we have to enter. Of course, we have to clear work, enter the initial investment, 30,000 negative because it's outflow. Enter the first inflow, 1, second inflow, frequency 1, third inflow, frequency 1. Going to the NPV, entering the interest rate, and this should give me the net present value. And you can see here, because I entered the initial investment as minus 30,000, it gives me the net present value, not the discounted cash flow, and it's positive, the difference of 1,254. If I enter this 0, then here I will get the 31,254. So let's grab our calculator now and go to CF0. Let's clear work, and we have to enter what? 30,000 as the initial investment, and it's negative. We're going to go to CL1, that's 8,000. Frequency 1, 13,000. Also frequency 1, and 16,000. Also frequency 1. We're going to go to NPV, enter the interest rate as 8, and we're going to press CPT, and you will see the answer is 1,254, and etc. Let me go back to CF. I'm going to enter this as 0, and I'm not going to change anything else. I'm going to go back to NPV and press CPT here, and you will see that this is 31,254, which is the discounted cash flow without subtracting the initial investment. So we did already the net present value, which is basically subtracting the cash inflow from the cash outflow from the cash inflow. And the decision is simple. If the net present value is positive, it's a good investment. Negative, it's a bad investment. 0, you're breaking even, you're not making any money. Okay, so positive, it's a good investment. Negative, not that good. 0, you have to look at other option. Probably the internal rate of return, the payback period, because they are the same, the inflow and the outflow. So let's look at one more example where we will get the actual net present value as well. So evaluating project which requires 100,000 investment. Based on their analysis, the project will generate future cash flows of 20,000, 40,000 2 years from now, 60,000 3 years from now, 30,000 4 years from now. Given that the company requires 12%, should they go ahead with this project? Okay, so that's what they have to do. enter the initial investment, 100,000. Make sure you enter it negative, as you can see here. Enter the CO1, frequency, CO2, frequency, CO3, frequency, CO4, frequency. Press the NPV, enter the interest rate, CPT, net present value, and it gives us 11,517. Keep in mind, this is the net present value, not the discounted cash flow, because we entered the initial cash flow, which is the outflow. Let's see, grab the calculator, let's clear work. Press the CFE. Okay, so initial investment is 100,000. Press the plus minus, enter. 20,000, the first investment. Press enter. Frequency is 1, we're not going to change that. Second investment is 40,000. Frequency 1. Third investment, you see that I didn't clear the cash flow here. It's still showing these numbers, but that's fine because I'm going beyond that. So CO3 is 60,000. Frequency 1. CO4 is 0 because we never entered CO4 before. So now I'm going to enter it as 30,000. And it also 1, the frequency. I'm going to go to NPV. Interest rate is 12. And net present value. And you can see that it's 11,517. It's positive, which means it's a good investment. So if you want to know the discounted cash flow for all future investment or future inflow, all you have to do is add 100,000 to the net present value, and you have the correct answer. Okay, so since it's greater than 0, it's positive, it's a good investment. Our last example, we're going to look at a very tricky or complex example. Not tricky, it's just because it has several different cash inflow. So, evaluating feasibility of constructing a factory. He would require an initial investment of 1 million, followed by 2 more investments. So this also outflow. 800,000 1 year from now and 650 2 years from now. The factory would start generating annual net income of 250 from year 2 onward. From the second year, they'll be generating 250,000 every year. He planned to sell the factory at the end of 10 years for 3.5 million. Is this plan preferable if his cost of capital is 13%? Let's look at the timeline because this is very important what's happening. So this is the initial investment. And the first year he's making another investment of 800,000. And the second year he's making another investment of 650,000. But he will start getting 250 from the second year. So in fact, in the second year, this is the loss or the investment, 400,000. Then he's going to be getting 250 every year, starting from the second year, but he has no investment anymore. At the end of 10 years, he's going to sell the factory for 3.5 million, plus he's still making the 250, which is every year, starting the second year. So if I'm doing the initial method, the compound interest, I have to find the present value of 9 different future values, because this is the initial present value. I have to find the future value for each year here, 10 years. Using the discounted cash flow worksheet, I don't have to do that. But I have to be careful. What do I enter? I know this is the initial investment, right? CF0. Then what's CO1? What's CO2? What's CO3? Well, this is CO1. The only thing is, when I enter CO1 here, I have to enter it negative because it's outflow. For CO2, I will enter the 400,000. I'm not going to enter both. Okay, so that's the only thing I have to be careful with. And then from this third year up to the 9th year, I have to enter it only once. Remember the frequency. And then, of course, the last CO would be the 3.75 million. So this is what we're going to do. As I said, we're going to enter CF0, the initial investment, as 1 million negative. CO1, it will be the 800,000, repeated only once. CO2, the difference between the 650 investment and the 250 inflow that they would be getting. But it's going to be negative, repeated once. Then the 250 from year 3 to year 9. So that's going to be repeated 7 times. From the third year to year 9. Because year 10, they're getting the 3.75 million. Repeated only once. That's the interest rate. The NPV is minus 50. Net present value is negative, which means it's not a good investment. Okay, so we have our calculator now. Let's clear work. Go to CV and also clear work. So now we're going to enter the 1 million first. Negative. Press enter. Okay, then we're going to enter 800,000 as the first investment. So the first CO1. I went to one more, so 800. And it's negative. Repeated only once. CO2, as we said, it's 400,000. Also negative. Repeated one. CO3 is the 250 from year 3 to year 9, so that's repeated 7 times. And CO4 is the 3.750 million, and that's repeated once. We're going to press NPV, enter the interest rate as 13, press enter, go to NPV, CPT, and you can see that it's a minus 50,628, which means it's not a good investment.
Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more videos on statistics using SPSS and Excel, among other things.